Hi, welcome to a brand new episode of Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez. I am your host, Jordan Ramirez, and today we have a special guest for today's episode. Please welcome Mr. J. Dixon Byrne. It's great to see you.
Hello there. Nice to see you too.
Oh, it's good. So, before we get started, uh, I know that I was introduced by Cindy, and she recommended me to you because of your work in both the stage and on I think on film and on television. But it's nice to work with somebody who has been part of the acting profession, which we will get into a little bit in just a moment.
Great. It's good to be here. Cindy's terrific. I met her, I guess, 5 years ago now, maybe longer, at her own film festival, the Art is Alive Film Festival. Uh, my partner and I, Sandeep Kumar, had a film in there, and that's how we first started with her. And now we've been maybe in her festival two or three times.
That's good. So now let's get into our segue here. So when did you first decide that you wanted to be a part of this profession, and what was your interest in wanting to become an actor?
Well, it goes back a long ways for me in terms of wanting to be an actor. There was always that desire. And the first time I was able to realize that goal was besides working in some, local stage productions. But my first film was I think it came out in 1991, but it was in progress for several years before that. It was called Clean Shaven. I'm the executive producer, and I play the part of Dr. Michael, who's the autopsy doctor in the movie.
Mm,
And, so I did that, and but simultaneously to that, and what was difficult was I had three kids. I was married. I was in the advertising business, and so making a full time living as an actor wasn't really going to work for me because I
mm,
had my first child when I was 25. So I was always in the business, you know, in and out of it actually. And so Clean Shaven was a the first feature that I was in, and then I did some stage work here and there, not very significant. And then around 12 or 15 years ago, um, my advertising career was, the kids were grown. I had more time on my hands, and I went back full time to acting, and I've maybe made 40 films since then.
that's really good. So I might imagine that if someone were to ask what it's like to be an actor in this profession in this industry, um, I might have to I might have to switch it around a little bit. But what is it like if for you working in this profession? I know that for your first experience, I think you mentioned it was not like a full-time position because you were already working in the advertising business. Am I correct on that, or maybe I
No,
miss?
I was in advertising and took time off to make the movie,
Hmm.
kind of juggle the two things. So when I became a full time actor, maybe like I said, about 12 or 15, 12, 14 years ago.
Hmm.
But how do you define the profession? Because for me, the profession is independent filmmaking.
Hmm.
I don't, I'm not a Hollywood actor. I don't,
Mm,
I don't go to California and make movies in the biz. So
yeah.
I do independent film, and that that's a very good, industry for me if you define it that way.
Hmm.
I get to I get to work with people I like. The budgets are reasonable. The work is good. I can kind of do it when I feel like it or when the opportunity presents itself, or I'm lucky enough to be cast in something. And I do a couple of 3, 4 films a year. Um, so it's a good profession
Mm,
for me. I don't do too much stage work because the time involved in actually prepping for stage and the commitment, for a run of a stage show is not something that I really can accommodate. So anyway, I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing.
that's good. So I know I should have asked myself this before I brought this question up, but I know that in the last, let's say, few years, maybe this is just in the West Coast versus maybe like on the East Coast. I know there's been a lot of like people trying to accept changes because of the fact that the industry itself, like the mainstream as opposed to the independent circuit, they're now it's changing very rapidly. It's not like it's always going to remain the same like 10, 15 years from now. But I know that independent filmmaking is like one of the few resources where actors and directors and people of this industry want to make sure that they not only have fun time working with sometimes on projects that they wanted to do. But my question is simply this. Since you have done independent projects, has the independent industry itself has it changed, say, maybe like the last 5 to 10 years, or has it remained the same pretty much?
Well, I guess it's nothing has really remained like the same. It's changed in terms of maybe people experimenting with technology and AI sort of thing. And maybe there's a relationship change between, more better known actors, maybe those people who have done Hollywood films who look to independent film as a way to reconnect with the acting profession. I
Hmm.
think there's more of that. But my my work area, the types of films that I make are, very low budget films. They're not
Mm,
something you're normally going to see a name actor
mm,
in. But I think the change in the industry is that name actors are dropping down to do $2 million movies, $4 million movies, seven
mm,
million dollar movies. And
hmm.
that is a change, I think, from 5 years ago. But it also reflects on another period in time in the 70s that was also a factor. That's what a lot of actors did, you know, during that cycle of
Yeah.
independent filmmaking. So,
Yeah. I would always think back to uh I would always think back to there was the old studio system in which it was all like big name performers, big named actors, and the studios would have whichever ones they were in the past, they would have in each control of the departments. And it used to be that profession up until the late 1960s when that industry collapsed and it basically gave birth to what is now what was referred to as the new Hollywood wave that
right.
lasted from the late 60s up until I think this rise of the American movie blockbusters in the late 70s and early 80s. I don't know if we are seeing that in this moment or I don't know. I mean, you mentioned that you work on low budget productions, which I think is a good thing because maybe I think that audiences right now, especially when I look at the demographic for the moviegoers today are like those who were born between 1996 and 2010. They're looking more to see movies in theaters, and I think they're making a sort of connection to independent movies as opposed to like the big budget mainstream pictures.
Yeah,
So my yeah. So
I, I was going to say, though, one thing that occurs to me that's impacting all of this evolution is the the rise of series development,
mhm,
like through Netflix, through streaming services, where the movie is important,
mhm,
a film is important, and they still produce, and they're also now kind of the replacement of the studio circuit is like the Netflixes of the world, the HBO
mhm,
Max is producing, but they also are heavily inclined to do, the 13-week series. So that's a moneymaker for them, and
mhm.
so that's a shift, I think, in the last 5 years or 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, I try to look at it. I know that in terms of what you mentioned, like the streaming platforms that used to be not as important, now they're important in the industry. And you mentioned there's like a 13-week series that they're doing. Um, so in terms of that, I mean I try to look at like whatever independent filmmaker is trying to get their work out there, whether I mean I recently just saw a film by a filmmaker whom I had on my show like last year. He had his film basically streamed on Tubi because he like other filmmakers are trying to get their work out there even though it may not be reading Hollywood big budget, but it's a
Right.
low budget independent film. It's no big named actors, but it's actors whom the director knows. So my question to you is, do you know of any other actors or acquaintances who made stuff that would later be shown on a streaming platform or that may have been trying to get a distribution deal when it was in theaters?
Yeah, well, I have several of those myself. I have a film called Congratulations, Debby, that we made probably 5 years ago, and it was picked up by a streaming service called Memory,
Hmm.
um, and that was when Memory was kind of just starting out, and it's been streaming for free on Memory for years. It's gotten great reviews, great pickup. I have a couple of films on Tubi, a horror film I did, a love story I did. So I think the filmmakers themselves, the director, the production team, the whoever owns the film, that's their source of revenue now. They're not going to get a big theatrical release necessarily. They might get a week, here or there.
Hmm.
Um, look, they look to try to get some kind of recurring revenue through a streaming service.
Yeah. I mean, I always try to find sort of like an optimistic route, but I know that because, as I said, I have connected with a filmmaker I know who's uh, not just him, but also other people whom I had on my program. Their films were basically uh, distributed through Tubi. Like that's, as you mentioned, it's like their source of revenue to try to get their stuff out there. So I don't know if these are like the future of how to get their films out there because it's not like in the past where you try to get your films distributed through the major studios as they did back then, or they were trying to find a distributor through whatever deal that they could make. Are we sort of entering into this new era where now the only way you would have to get your work out there is to go streaming, or maybe there's some filmmakers who decide streaming may not be enough, but they would have to take it on the road somewhere?
Well, I think it goes back to what level of film you're talking about. If it's an A-list actor, then they have all the opportunities are open to them, theatrical and et cetera, but and streaming. But if you're like the independent group, like the people that I would associate with, um, even streaming is difficult to make a lot of money back because it's a very competitive marketplace. I don't know how many movies are made every year, but it's more than five, and
Mm,
there's a lot for people to look at. So it's difficult, and there are new. I'm not going to be able to remember the names of them necessarily, but there are a few that come and go in terms of being new streaming services for the independent filmmaker. So everybody's got this effort that is, the heart's in the right place to try to get the products out there to be seen by people.
mm,
Uh, but it's very, very difficult, and there are a lot of broken hearts out there because of it. It's you do a great film. I've had examples of great films being made, and not too much exposure overall, even if you're streaming,
mm.
because of the nature of the competitive logarithm or whatever it is that promotes, a streaming film.
Yeah,
So that's the difficulty.
yeah. I always try to find like some sort of like what sort of optimistic route that any filmmaker or any person in the independent profession would do, but I don't know if there is some wise choice of words or advice that if anybody who was trying to get made independently, even if it may not be like big budget or anything like that, what would you say to those who try to get into the profession, or how you can make sure that they would get something done, even if there are a lot of hurdles ahead?
I think it goes back to motivation. If the person looking to do that has a burning desire to tell a story, and to make a film, they should they can do that, and they can do that for not a lot of money.
Hmm.
Um, their objective is to make a movie to make money. Bad objective, and maybe they'll get lucky, and maybe they won't. My words of wisdom would be: don't do it for that reason,
Hmm.
or find yourself a celebrity, a producer that's successful, an actor that wants to do it, and have a lot of money to put it up, because that's the horse race you're going to take, and
Yeah.
maybe you'll win and maybe you won't. But the purer advice is, if you've got a story to tell, go tell it, and you can tell it on an iPhone, you can tell it with a with a camera. You can tell it any number of ways.
mm,
I
mm,
work with a director named James Wilkins, and he is a sort of a hand. He makes his films handmade. Like if he's going to shoot it, it's done very guerrilla style.
mm,
We made a movie recently called The Misconceived, and I have a voiceover. It's a movie that was literally made through gaming machines.
okay.
So it's a phenomenal look, a phenomenal feel to the movie. The budget was not that much; it was very reasonable, but it took him, over a year of editing the movie voice wise first, sentence by sentence, to
Mm,
put the, to put the track down so that then he could create imagery using motion capture and other techniques
mm,
to build this sort of semi-animated movie.
mm,
It went to Rotterdam. It got tremendous national exposure. I mean, international exposure there. It's been in different festivals. It's got a theatrical release, and that is due to the nature of the film, but it's also due to his reputation as sort of an avant-garde filmmaker.
mm,
But none of his movies make big money. No,
mm.
he's not looking to make the money back. He does it to tell unique stories.
Yeah,
So that's the only way to do it if you and it's more fun that way. And you
absolutely.
know,
So this is something that I wanted to do because I know that since I always wanted to talk to somebody who has worked in the industry, I always wanted to ask if maybe you had any remembrances or if you had any memories of working on specific productions where you got along with either the crew or the cast or the director of a certain project, that maybe you would like to share some of those memories that maybe could be something that I think would be fun to discuss.
in terms of like people that where the relationship was good, you mean?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, like a
yeah,
good relationship story, like something that feels like what it was it like to work on a certain project that maybe of anything that you worked on that maybe would be some I'm just I always like to find something that maybe is like hopeful or something that's a good type of story. I always try to look for something good.
well, I mean, I haven't really had a bad. I'm out of the camera. I haven't really had a bad, experience with a director, um, where it was like, just negative. But what's happened, I think, as in a positive way, is when I went back into the industry, and I needed to get, my reel together and update my stuff. Um, one of the and I think this is good advice for people. One of the places that I went, I was about 55 years old, but I went to NYU casting, and I looked at all the stuff that was in backstage coming out of these guys in school. So I went and I met, maybe over the course of 2 years, I probably met 20 different directors.
Hmm.
And I did a day here, a day there, a scene here, something there. But out of those 20 directors, I would say half of them would call me for their first feature,
Hmm.
and then each of those guys and women, I developed a relationship with. So a lot of the movies I've made with working with a director for a third or fourth time.
Hmm.
And then I develop a business partnership. I have a friend, a really good friend, Gleb Osatinsky.
Hmm.
We made a film together that won Woodstock 2 years ago, a
Hmm.
short film. So that was a tremendous experience. Shot in Lithuania. I was a producer. I wasn't an actor, but I've been in his other films as an actor, and now we're trying to get the feature of that off the ground. So, the stories are just there's a guy named Michael Perrone. I made 3 or 4 different movies with him,
Hmm.
and we have a lot of fun every time we make a film together. And I help him write it and develop the character. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know if other. I'm sure other people have the same kind of. You see it. You see on the grand scale. You see it with Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro. They're just buddies and they make movies together.
Yeah.
So we do that on a like the invisible scale.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now a message from Jordan Ramirez for Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez.
I want to take a break from this episode to thank my listeners slash viewers who watch the videos on my YouTube channel and listen to each new episode on Spotify. While this show is a labor of love and passion that isn't about the movies that I like, this is also a show that is about the films that you like. Have a film that you want to recommend to the podcast? Make sure to recommend it in the comments section on YouTube and on Spotify, and you will receive a shout out in a future episode. Want to be a guest on the podcast? Click on the sign up form link in the episode description for further details. If you like this episode or my previous episodes, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more interviews in the near future. The goal for this channel is to reach up to 100 subscribers both on YouTube and on Spotify. It's just that easy. And now, back to our regularly scheduled episode. I only ask these questions because anytime I always think back to those who worked in whatever number of years in the industry or in the profession. I always try my best to preserve that type of history. I always try my best to uh, keep that moment of history alive because maybe in whatever amount of years it will take, that history might be lost. And I try my best to keep that moment alive for those who may not know about what was going on in whatever profession or whatever part of the industry it was. I always try my best to do it because I like film history and I also try to keep that memory alive, is what I'm saying.
It's very good. Yeah, that's good. And it's good to like, ask me about that, and then someone can, maybe somebody young watching will, or not so young even, because I went in middle age, I was sort of back in action there, and had
Hmm.
to start over. That's another thing. There's a lot of actors who, historically have come late to film,
Hmm.
um, and never give up. There's only if you want to be an actor, you do one film and you're an actor.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I always try my best not to go. The only thing I try to do when I do these interviews is I always try to avoid like asking the types of questions that you would often see in the glitz and the glamour interviews. I try to avoid doing that, and instead I try to ask like the more interesting questions that don't get asked as much, or I try to preserve, as I say, I try to preserve that amount of history, or maybe if there are certain questions that maybe have not been answered, I always try my best to get that stuff out there. And I always try my best to find. Uh, I mean, I'm not trying to go like big budget actors or big named actors. I'm only trying to go for actors who love this, who love being part of the industry, love being part of the profession, and also like to talk about what doing this stuff that they love to do. And I'm pretty sure that all these people also have, different things going on in their careers and in their lives. So it's good to
uh,
be a part of that.
yep, terrific.
Yeah. So so I know that we've talked about that, but uh, I always try to avoid talking this question if you're uncomfortable with it. Do you find that there are some pros and some cons for those who wanted to maybe work in the independent circuit or in the independent industry uh, as an actor or as a filmmaker, besides what we have discussed in earlier in the podcast episode?
Some pros and cons of that.
Yeah, like what are some positive things? What are some negative things that
Yeah. Um, well, the the we pretty much touched on the positive things, which are a sense of fulfillment for doing something that you like, you love. It's an art form. You do it for your own personal reasons. A lot of times that filters down to, trying to have an impact on people's lives, making them feel something about a character. So there's a lot of reward in that. You go broke doing it. That's
hmm
kind of the negative part of it. You're not going to make a lot of money.
hmm
Uh, you you uh, you have to expose parts of yourself that are the most vulnerable.
Hmm.
So I think you got to be willing to do that. That I have found to be a positive thing for myself. I don't know if everybody does. But the big, and you got to be ready to just not fail exactly, but not hit the home run.
Yeah.
So I think that's something you have to really be at peace with why you're doing what it is you're doing, because you could be working a 12-hour, 13-hour day. You
Mm.
could be asked to, I've been asked to dress like a clown, dress like a frog, be a talking frog, be a sad clown, be different kinds of characters that you have to be willing to do. I played in a film where I was the man that invented the sadness pill. It's like
Mhm.
you got to go pretty dark for some of that, and there's a reward if you
Yeah.
can get through that. So, but it tests your psyche, and that can be a con for some people.
Oh,
A
yeah.
negative. So,
Yeah. I mean, I only asked this because I know that we already touched the positives, and I just wanted to ask before I answered this question if you were comfortable with it or if you wanted to just skip over this question because I know that we already touched on some of this stuff. So now we can segue on to you mentioned some of the future projects. So uh, do you have any other future projects, or the ones that you have mentioned are the upcoming projects that are in the works at the moment?
I have a couple of films that are now in post production. One of them is about the sadness issue. Um, the other one, though, that I didn't mention that I will is called "There's a Man in My House."
Hmm.
There's a lost man in my house,
Okay.
and that is with the director Sandeep Kumar. Um, People could look him up. He's an Austrian director, and we've made several films together. This particular film is about two people who never should meet, and it's a very independently made independent film, and I'm
Hmm.
pretty proud of that movie. Um, let's see, what else do we have coming up? I have a movie called Johnny Spaceman in the World of Yesterday,
Hmm.
and that is a featured film. Made by Grant Herson, and that'll be coming out probably by the end of the year. I just shot something I can't even talk about because it's
Oh.
kind of secret.
Mm-hmm.
With well, it was a more not this wasn't a movie exactly, but it'll be a short film, but it's done with an advertising agency, and it's kind of about a cause.
Hmm.
It's a promotional piece, but it's really really interesting. So I have that, and then for myself, I work on different things. I besides making movies, I write. I try to produce music.
Hmm.
So I have a variety of things going on.
Oh, so you're like a man of many talents, is what I would have said.
I'm a man of many efforts.
Man of many efforts, excuse me. Uh,
Talent, and we'll see.
yeah. But yeah, it's great that you have that you're working on these other projects. I know you mentioned one which we cannot talk about. It's under wraps. But it's amazing that I get that you can share these ideas with us. But it's really amazing. Gosh.
If your show, if your podcast comes out, I'm not sure when it'll come out, and if people in New Jersey are seeing it, we have a film at the New Jersey International Film Festival
Hmm.
that I shot about a year ago, called "The Girl with a Red Hat," and
Okay.
that's a really good film for an age group between, I would say, maybe 12, 13, and 17, 18,
Hmm.
because it's really about social media and how impactful that can be on a young person's psyche.
Hmm.
Um, this is kind of a good lesson film, and I play an old hat salesman, who
Hmm.
meets this young girl who's having a difficulty in social media.
Yeah.
So it's a really heartwarming story. So there's
It
that
is.
happening.
Yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, it's a really amazing thing to talk about. I always try to look at the positives because originally I may have told my other guests on the podcast about this. Originally, it was a podcast where I get to talk about some of the films that I like to talk about, And then I tried to invite other, and then I switched to having podcasters as guests, talk about some of their favorite movies. And now I'm sort of shifting it to now I wanted to cover like the independent industry because I feel like I know I also have a relative who is a filmmaker and she also loves independent filmmaking because she loves looking at not just international films, but she also likes to look at some independent films that she sees in the theaters or maybe that she sees on DVD
Right.
or maybe on VHS because I'm still trying to I mean I have VHS tapes and I have DVDs and I'm trying to sort of keep physical media alive as well because I know that every other person nowadays likes to go streaming, but for me, I mean streaming's fine, but I also like to own something that's like that's physical media instead of just like because of all the rights issues and all the licensing and all that stuff. I just feel like you need to make sure to keep that because you never know what happens to the property or the film that you see on streaming. You're never sure what happens. So I always try to keep it alive as best as I can.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think if you really like film, you are naturally, drawn to a collection mindset. You want to collect something.
Mhm.
So, like, if you like a director, maybe you collect his work. You like an actor, same thing. You like noir, you collect, black and white movies. So
Mhm.
that's a good. That's where the DVDs and the VHSs come in.
Yeah. Yeah, I always try to look at whatever is out there because uh, the library I know has a lot of great DVDs. The one I go to borrow movies over there, they're now just moving on to Blu-rays, but they also have like as I mentioned, international titles. I try to look at some mainstream titles, but also some independent titles that they may have there. But I also try to support local libraries because they also have some of the best films that you may not find in your DVD stores or any other store that you can find.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, I always try to go for that instead of like whatever streaming platform that people might try to find movies on, as I mentioned. Um, Sometimes they may not be there anymore, so you always have to keep searching for whatever copies you can find. But I also like the fact that I know I mentioned my cousin who is into independent filmmaking. She also has been directing a film that I saw, which is really that good. And she's also trying to direct her next project. She also went to a few film festivals. So yeah, she's on her way to try to get to try to do films, even though it's going to be independent or low budget, as best as she can.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
I'll look to her.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it used to be that I thought I was the only member of my own family who used to know about filmmaking and film history and stuff like that. But now it's becoming more like several of my other members of the family are also getting into filmmaking as well, film history and all that stuff. So I might not be the only one. So it's interesting to see that shift go from myself to somebody else in the family and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Makes for a nice, holiday discussion.
Yes. So my question, this may be something this may not be related to the topic we are discussing about, but it may be uh you don't have to answer this question if I put this out. Uh do you find yourself or maybe your own circle of friends or family members who are into filmmaking or not really into that profession at all, like in acting or the industry or itself or whatever I may put out?
Can you rephrase that for me? That question? I'm not sure I understand.
Okay, okay. Are they interested in the movie profession, the movie industry is what I'm
Oh,
asking.
my family? My
Family or friends or anybody you know, like
right.
acquaintances.
Well, I think just about everybody I know likes a really good movie. They like to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anybody in my direct family that is currently interested in being an actor or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. I have a 21-year-old son who, as he grew up, was very good in musical theater. Did it all through school, did it right through into college, and then his desires sort of shifted. So he's now doing some other things. But in terms of my family, No, I had an uncle growing up that was not an actor, but he was a radio talk show host, and he
Hmm.
did radio commercials. So I was exposed to it that way.
Hmm.
But that was tangential, really. It didn't nothing. I was older before I even knew that. So in terms of family, no, 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 no actors. Just
No, no,
just
that's fine.
a lot of Irish guys that like to make up stories.
No, no, it's fine. I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything. I always like to answer these types of questions because it's the same thing with me because my family they they're not like movie oriented. It used to be that they were into other professions, they were into other things, but movies and filmmaking was not on their radar. They were more into like engineering, or they were more into teaching, or they were more into the medical field, but not into filmmaking, which it's fine for me because they already have careers of their own, and I just was
Yes.
like exposed to it very much at a younger age. I used to like watching animation as a young child, but I didn't get exposed to film until maybe a little bit later when I was maybe around middle or high school. I think that was when I first got exposed to film.
I got you.
Yeah. But yeah, I just thought I would answer this question. It sounded off topic because I always try to uh I mean, I'm autistic and I always try to put out like whatever topics I can out there. If it's something off topic, I always try to let people know ahead of time before anything else.
So it's in the ballpark. Okay.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, forgive me for the question that didn't sound like it was phrased correctly, but I had to correct it a little while after. That's just part of my diagnosis as somebody diagnosed with autistic spectrum disorder.
Okay. No problem.
Yeah. So before we get to wrap things up, I know it's not like so do you have and besides the advice that you gave out, what would you say to anybody uh who likes independent filmmaking, who likes to be a part of acting in independent films? Um, just what is it like to just what it's like to have fun, to do the things you want to do, fulfill your dreams, fulfill your passions, and also if you want to get stuff out there, just do whatever it takes, and no matter if it costs a lot of money or if it doesn't, just do what the things that you love. Like, what would you say would be the last thing you want to address?
Well, in terms of somebody who's young and just starting out, who's interested in doing this, it's a it's a um, it's a situation where you have to have a thick skin. You have to be persistent. You have to be able to take some sense of rejection. I think one of the things that maybe would be helpful is to took me a long time to learn this, but when you go on a casting call and you're auditioning for a part, there's a lot of advice out there that I think a person should look up about how to audition. But to summarize what I think is the best of that advice, but people have to make their own decision. It's don't be so desperate for the part. Go in as yourself, go in with an understanding of what you can contribute to the character. Be the character as much as you can be, as your understanding of that role, and just offer something unique about yourself that's built into that or around that character. That's something that takes a long time for people to learn. It sounds obvious, it sounds simple, but most I think it also maybe comes with age and experience, but I think that that's a way to do it. Don't walk in there trying to make the director happy or the people on the other side of the camera happy. Just
Mm.
just go in there and be something unique about that character that they've asked you to portray in that moment. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. You'll get some other one.
Mhm. Yeah,
I'm so good.
yeah, it's often good advice. Um, I know that uh you mentioned like you had an uncle or somebody who used to work in as a television
And then, yeah, and advertising.
in
My uncle
advertising. Yeah.
advertising, and he developed a couple of radio characters, and did radio shows and like that.
Mm. I always thought to myself that whenever I see television, I always think of it as like it's similar to filmmaking because they're like little mini films. They're like 30 seconds or maybe like close to a minute long, but I might be wrong. I don't know. I don't
For
know if I'm
commercial,
wrong.
for commercials
Yeah.
are different. Yeah, commercials. Not wrong, but commercials are, they're not. They're designed to sell a product. They're designed to make you feel good about the product. They're very manipulative in their own way,
Hmm.
but they can be fun and enjoyable. And I've done a bunch of commercials and fine. Um, but they're not exact. But there's an expression in the business called bite and smile, in a commercial. Like you eat the hot dog and you smile, like, because it tastes good.
Mm.
That's not really that's not really acting. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because my definition of acting is it's imperceptible what you're doing.
Mm.
You're just the person in a situation, but a commercial, not so much. There are commercials that can be very well done and very real and very authentic. But it is a different animal.
Mm.
And radios, my uncle did these radio characters, and they were, to sell Barney's clothing store, for example.
Mm.
And you know, he created, funny characters, and he had a good time, and people loved him and laughed and bought clothes. So, he had a good time.
Mm.
That's the nature of advertising. If you can, but you want to talk about a changing industry, that industry is basically going down the shitter. So, that's kind of tough.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. I mean, I used to take an advertising class, but from what you're describing right now as rapidly changing and going down, as you say, the shitter, um, I didn't actually think it was going to go downhill for the advertising industry at this moment right now. I didn't know it was downhill at this moment.
well, it from my experience, it is, and watching what I watch and reading what I read.
Hmm.
Social media is really important, and the way things are communicated are important, but it's not. There's very few big ideas out there. I come from the era in advertising. It was right after the Mad Men era was sort of my era. I was not. I'm old, but I'm not that old. And,
No.
and so I'm out, I come in the wave right after Mad Men, which is to say around 1975.
Hmm.
I the Yeah, 75, and that was if Mad Men died at 69, like that was the end of the Mad Men era. Um, the You still needed to have a huge idea to sell a client because the money they put behind it was enormous, 40 million, 50 million, 200 million dollars behind your idea. Now, if somebody's coming out with a $500,000 advertising campaign, they don't give a shit about the idea so much. They just want to get eyeballs to hear about, their shoes, their tennis racket, their,
Mm.
their weight loss product, whatever it happens to be.
Their insurance companies or cars or mostly dietary supplements.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. So the amount of money invested in a big campaign is very little,
Yeah.
because social media is not like you're not buying a 30-second spot on the Super Bowl. Now, those that do tend to have a big idea, but
Hmm.
most of them don't do that. So they're buying, a 10 or 12-second little video that may run on TikTok, may run on YouTube, may be out there on whatever social media platform. Doesn't cost them a lot of money. So
Yeah.
it shows. In my
I mean,
opinion.
to be honest, I always get sick of seeing some of the same advertisements, either on game shows or whatever show I'm watching. I'm like, I can't stand seeing some of the same advertisements or the characters that they created over and over again. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, or maybe it's just, as you say, it's just maybe they're not too bright on ideas no more.
Yeah, I think that's my opinion. One guy,
Yeah.
man's opinion.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much where we are at this moment. So okay, so now that we have talked a little bit about that,
Yeah.
um where can people find you and as you mentioned some of the projects, um and also where can people find you like on social media or on your email address or on your website just for
Well,
anybody who is
yeah,
interested.
right. I have a website. It's jdixonbyrne.net.
Okay.
Okay. JDixonByrne.net, and there's there are links on that to projects I'm working on, projects I've done in the past, clips from my video clips of films I'm in, um, as well as my other ventures. Which, as a writer, I created a link to a website that you can find through jdixonbyrne.net called the Perception Studio. So I write sort of stories and produce videos and things there. Um, and also, I have an album and a song out on Spotify. The album's called Variations,
Hmm.
and the song is called The Lost and Found. So if anybody is, that's all on my website. So if you're interested in what I'm saying, you can dig through that and see, a variety of things that I've done. I wrote a book about 12 years ago called "There's a Person in Here," because I had a couple of tragedies in my life, and I
Hmm.
decided to do this experimental memoir. So that's out there. That's on Amazon. If anybody wants to, give somebody a depressing Christmas gift, you can look now. So there's, a lot of different things, a lot of different aspects of my work that you could find by going to jdixonbyrne.net.
Okay, sounds good. And thank you so much. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. And it was really fun discussion, even if it may be a little bit repetitive with some of my questions that I asked. I do get the reputation of sometimes being repetitive, of re-asking some of the same questions, and maybe the answers are a little bit the same.
Well, I think you were poking around there. It was good. It added some depth to it.
Yeah, I try my best to avoid being a bit repetitive. But thank you so much for being on this podcast, and I maybe we'll see each other in the future of maybe when your other projects come along, and I look forward to listening to your album and seeing your website about your book and
Okay.
that you wrote 12 years ago. So it was great having you here, and it's been a pleasure.
Okay, Jordan, thanks very much for your time. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. And
Bye-bye now.
yeah. And this is Jordan Ramirez signing off. And until then, I'll see you at the movies. And Jay Dixon Burns, thank you again for being on the show.
Take it easy. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.